The anime starts by introducing us to Takeru Kamishiro, a simple office worker whose life can be summed up in the same old commute, the same old job, and the same old trip home. This ordinary life is supposed to be comforting for some, and yet there's a part of him that longs for something different, a little taste of something out of the ordinary. One day, after coming home from work, Takeru sits on his couch, hoping to find something more interesting than his life on the TV. However, all he finds is a man drinking tea in some sort of white space, and before he knows it, Takeru appears right in front of that man without explanation. The white-haired man introduces himself as the one who oversees the solar system, so Takeru assumes he's an alien, but he clarifies he's actually closer to a god. The man simply asks him to think of him as middle management for the universe, which sounds very down-to-earth for Takeru. Leaving that aside, the god lets him see a completely different planet called Medeus, saying that no matter how much he tweaks it, things never go well there. Civilizations keep collapsing on a regular basis, so now he's had to step in himself. The god grabs a teapot to show him an example, explaining that into that world, he drops a single bead, and sometimes that ripple can swell into a wave large enough to change the entire world. Now Takeru will become that single bead that's going to change everything. Hearing all this, Takeru doesn't seem very excited, saying that he can't just spring something like that on him all of a sudden. The god clarifies he already died, so if he doesn't go to Medeus now, his soul will simply fade away. Takeru freaks out for a bit, exclaiming that he can't just drop something like that on him so casually. The god quickly tries to reassure him, saying that he's not going to send him there completely empty-handed. He'll grant him gifts, and whatever he wishes for, something he can call a special ability. Takeru isn't so sure about what that means, so the god tells him it'd be something like the power to use magic. He starts writing down something about extreme magical potential, and asks him if there's anything else he wants. After thinking for a bit, Takeru excitedly says that he wants a cute partner, so the god writes that down, saying that he will meet her when the time comes. He also mentions that he'll boost his scouting skills, since gathering materials can be sold for money. Lastly, he'll give him a handy bag to store everything he collects, and he'll throw in the world's language and various resistances. Before the god can say anything else, Takeru panics when he notices his own body disappearing. The god assumes it's almost time, so he quickly checks the list he made, confirming all the things he added. Just at the last minute, he realizes he might have given him a little too much, and he's not so sure about the partner he decided for him. Takeru clearly gets concerned about that last part, so he asks him what he meant by that, but the god simply smiles and repeats that he will be okay as he disappears. However, before he knows it, he wakes up in the woods of that world called Medeus, having a new body and a completely different life. All he has is the things the god gave him, a handy bag, and a stick he found by his side. Takeru has no idea of what to do with that, so for now he decides he should try to find where people live. After walking in the woods for a while, he finally finds a settlement, but realizes that he can't go there without any money, since he probably won't even get a meal. Just then, Takeru remembers the god's words when he said he'd boost his scouting skills to gather materials that could be sold for money. He immediately tries to activate that skill, trying to figure it out with his stick, but fails miserably when nothing happens. Takeru immediately gets upset and even embarrassed, thinking that he might be saying it wrong. He uses the stick to trace words on the dirt, trying different ways to activate it. After a while, when he says the word search, a clover-shaped light appears in front of him. Before he knows it, several lights with different shapes appear all around in the woods, showing him the locations of different materials. With this, Takeru confirms that the magic activates when he says the right word, so maybe there's a way to look into things in more detail. He tries with several words, and when he says the word scan, the name of the materials is displayed in front of him. The first thing he finds is a moonlit herb, and Takeru gets excited to know that his first gathered material is rank B. Now he knows that he just has to gather everything that's glowing, since he'll be able to sell it later. He decides that'll be enough for now, though everything he gathered is low-rank stuff. Just then, he notices something that looks like a stone under the leaves, so he grabs it to inspect what it is. Takeru uses scan on the stone, only to find out that it's actually rank C hammer anteater droppings. He's a little disgusted to know he's holding poop, but at least it's highly ranked, unlike the other things. With everything he's gathered, Takeru at least figured out that materials that can be traded show up with different icons, and he can track them with his scouting magic. Now that he's gotten a decent haul of materials, he heads to the village he saw before to find out how much they'll sell for. At the entrance of the village, a guard welcomes him, instantly noticing how tall Takeru is. He asks him if he's a warrior or a swordsman, but Takeru clarifies he's just there to sell some materials. The guard mentions that a material gathering specialist is a rare sight, and after that he introduces himself as Marlowe, part of the Tormi Village Watch. He tells him that they don't really have a dedicated materials shop, but there's a general store he can visit, so he should try selling the materials there. Takeru thanks him for the information and enters the village, instantly drawing the attention of many inhabitants. Once he gets to the general store, he offers the rank C material he found to the shopkeeper, wanting to know if he'd buy something like that. The shopkeeper gets really surprised, immediately recognizing the hammer anteater droppings. He grabs it with his bare hands, saying that its shape, strength, and color are exceptional, so he's amazed he could find it. The shopkeeper offers 5 silver coins for it, but Takeru still doesn't know much about the going rate, so he asks, how much is a night at an inn? The man tells him it's usually 500 rave per night, and for reference, 1 silver coin is 1,000 rave. Takeru realizes that if an inn night is about 5,000 yen, then the poop he found is worth 50,000 yen, which sounds crazy to him. The shopkeeper snaps him out of his thoughts, so Takeru quickly accepts his offer, sealing a good deal for both of them. The man happily rubs the hammer anteater droppings against his face, creating a disturbing scene for Takeru's eyes. That aside, he decides to show him the other materials he gathered, and the shopkeeper is more than amazed. He asks him why he brought it all the way out to a backwater like this, so Takeru explains that he was traveling and collecting different materials. With this in mind, the shopkeeper tells him he's got a job for him, since he wants him to collect some mithril ore from the eastern mountain. Takeru just asks him for a map to that mountain, and since it's settled, the shopkeeper offers him a map and 360,000 rave for the materials he brought. This makes him freak out a little, because now he has 3.6 million yen, earned all in less than a day. The shopkeeper warns him there are monsters up there, but he's counting on him to get what he wants. Takeru gets a little worried about that, but he decides to think about that later, and quickly finds an inn to rest for the night. Once he can finally catch his breath, he can't help but think that he'd really like a shower or a bath right now. Just then, a little girl from the inn staff enters his room to offer a bowl of hot water, saying that it's 30 rave per use. Takeru approaches her with curiosity and asks her what he's supposed to do with that. She explains that he's supposed to wipe himself down, such as his body and feet, since he must feel dusty as an adventurer. Takeru doesn't seem very convinced about that method, so he asks her about a bath instead, but the little girl clarifies they don't have anything like that, since it's something only nobles have. This piece of information completely terrifies him, making him fall to his knees, as he can't imagine life without taking a bath. The girl tries to reassure him, saying that she's heard some mages can clean people with magic, but they don't have one of those in Tormi. Takeru immediately snaps out of his misery when he hears that, so he quickly takes the hot water and tips the girl so she can leave. Without wasting any time, he starts thinking about the right word he can use to clean his body with magic. When he says the word clean, the hot water surrounds his body with magic, leaving him spotless in a matter of seconds. The little girl can hear him screaming in awe from the hallways, and Takeru is as happy as ever to be clean. Despite how convenient that magic is, as a bath lover, it still feels very unsatisfying for him, which frustrates him to no end. The next day, he heads out to gather more materials, quickly getting the hang of using his skill. For the first time, his ability shows him a spade symbol, so he excitedly hurries to check what it is, but almost gets a heart attack when he finds a corpse. Takeru assumes that he fought there and collapsed, and when he takes a closer look at his belongings, he finds a family charm made by the man's mother. Inside that charm, he finds a letter from the man's sister, who apparently thanked him for helping and wished him to stay safe. Takeru knows he can't just walk away from something like that, so he decides to dig a proper grave for the man and prays for him at the end. Once the day comes to an end, he draws a circle on the dirt and uses magic to activate a protective barrier. With that, he lets his guard down and tries to cook something, pouring water into a pot and adding seasonings he got at the inn, plus some wild greens he pulled up nearby. Finally, he adds some meat into the pot, creating a special meat soup with wild greens. Takeru is delighted to taste his creation, saying that the meat juices and soup blend together nicely, and it's insanely good. After getting his stomach full, Takeru continues on his journey and arrives at the Forest of White Trees, also known as the Forest of Ancient Dragons, a dangerous zone where monsters are rampant. He uses his ability to track the materials in the zone, but sees no reaction from ore. Plus, there isn't a single living thing in the place, not even monsters for some reason. Takeru gets horrified, thinking about the possibility of him smelling so bad that no living thing wants to be near him. He sniffs himself to make sure, but decides to leave that aside, knowing that it's better if it keeps things from attacking him. Having the path clear, Takeru runs to get out of the forest, but when he least expects it, he falls from a cliff. He panics and desperately tries to find a word to fly with magic before he hits the ground. Luckily, he quickly manages to do it by saying the word fly, so he lands safely on the ground. Right at the bottom of that cliff, he finds numerous ore readings with his skill, so he immediately starts to gather some. After a while searching for mithril, an earthquake shakes the ground, so he knows that it's best for him to grab what he can and get out. Takeru uses Blaze to hit some rocks, wanting to get an ore that's deep in the ground. With that, he finally manages to find mithril, a rank A+ material rich in mineral and magical essence. Takeru celebrates, but notices how small it is, which makes him think it's not enough. Another earthquake shakes the ground, but he decides he should push on as far as he can go. After walking for a while, he sees something glowing bright blue at the end of the cave, so he approaches it to inspect what it is. Surprisingly, what he finds is an immense body of clear water, so he doesn't hesitate to use scan on it. His ability informs him that it's actually underground magic water from the lair of the ancient dragon. Takeru is shocked to see its rank SS, since it's the biggest find he's scanned so far. A loud growl is heard in the background, but he ignores it while he thinks about the situation. If this lake water is full of the ancient dragon's mana, then it must have actually lived here ages ago. After that clear growl, a deep voice asks who dared to awaken him from his slumber. But once again, Takeru completely ignores it, too focused on his own thoughts. He happily approaches the water, saying that he definitely wants to take some back, though he'd have to dump out the water in his canteen. The voice from before demands for an answer, but Takeru doesn't hear it and decides to taste the water since his ability says it's drinkable. Just when he dips his hands in the water, an immense creature emerges from it with a furious growl. After being ignored for long enough, the creature faces Takeru and asks him to listen to his words. Takeru is a little taken aback, and the dragon is surprised he endured his pressure. Once he understands the situation, Takeru bows to apologize for trespassing in his territory without permission. He has no issue in apologizing like that, as he's bowed to all kinds of people since entering the workforce, though he never thought he'd have to bow to a dragon. The dragon laughs at his action, clearly pleased to see he's a man of steady nerves. Takeru then tells him his name, saying that he's a simple human, though the dragon isn't very convinced, because he can sense overwhelming magic power spilling from him, and it even woke him from his slumber. Hearing that, Takeru admits he's not sure what he means, but the dragon tells him that, whatever he is, his magic rivals his own. Just then, Takeru realizes that this creature is actually the ancient dragon, something he clearly wasn't expecting. The dragon confirms this, introducing himself as Voldius, though Takeru casually gives him a short nickname. Voldius doesn't have a problem with this, and without wasting any time, he asks him for his strength. He explains that with his pure power, he might be able to revive his child. The stagnant, tainted mana here keeps the egg from hatching, so he needs his help to make it happen, though he won't ask that for free. With one touch, Voldius creates magic mithril ore, offering it as payment. Takeru is clearly interested in the job, so the dragon shows him the egg that won't hatch. Once it's in his hand, Takeru is shocked to see how big it is, but he's not so sure about what he's supposed to do. Voldius simply tells him he has to pour his magic into it, the same way he created that light before. Knowing that it's an egg, Takeru supposes he has to warm it up, so he uses his heat magic on it. However, almost instantly, he starts getting absorbed by the egg, not knowing what's going on. Takeru tries to fight it, since he only just arrived in this world, and he wanted to see many more places. He can't do anything to save himself, so he just appears in an empty space, where a voice tells him how reckless he was. Takeru sees a god in front of his eyes, but he's quite different from before, having black hair instead of white. The man mentions that when a dragon pops up, people either faint or run for their lives, but he just went and changed the laws already. He's been tinkering with this world for hundreds of thousands of years, and he went and spread ripples everywhere in no time, which kind of bugs him. That's why he'll thin out a bit, that ridiculous blessing he gave him. Takeru doesn't understand anything, but his vision starts going black, and before he leaves, the man tells him that a little trouble will do him good. Just in a blink, Takeru abruptly wakes up, hearing a silly chirp that actually comes from Voldius's child. The little dragon immediately jumps at him excitedly, but Takeru complains about its fishy smell. Voldius asks him to give it a name, since it already has a true name, but he wants him to give it an alias. After thinking for a bit, Takeru decides to name it B for Black, since it's easy to say, and it suits it. Voldius asks his child to roam this vast world to his heart's content, so B immediately joins Takeru's party. Takeru is not entirely sure about this, but Voldius tells him that he can trust him with it, since his power is greater than his. Voldius shoots some kind of light at him and dives back into the water, saying that he's counting on him. Takeru has no choice but to take B with him on his material-gathering journey, but before heading out, he uses his cleaning magic on the little dragon, trying to get rid of that awful fishy smell. After a while walking through the dark cave, Takeru finally manages to see the exterior, and B gets really excited, since it's his first time outside. However, knowing that moving through the forest at night can be tricky, Takeru decides that this site will be their campsite. He uses some rank SS underground magic element water to keep B hydrated, since it's mana water infused with essence from the ancient dragon. Voldius apparently linked his item box to that underground lake with magic before they left, so now he has unlimited access to it. That water is essential for raising a dragon hatching, and it's also drinkable for Takeru. Thanks to this, B can drink all the mana water needed for growth, though he also drinks some of it when the little one offers him some. At nighttime, Takeru uses some magic stones to create a protective barrier around them so that they don't have to worry about monsters in their sleep. According to the encyclopedia he bought at the Jerome's place, magic stones are supposed to be precious. He uses an effect to warm things up and manages to create a magic stone in his hand. Takeru can make magic stones pretty easily, so he uses one to make a fire, wanting to cook something for dinner. He seasons some meat and throws various ingredients into a pot to make soup, adding some greens on top of it. Once the food is ready, he quickly notices that B is basically drooling over it, so he offers him some, hoping that it doesn't upset his stomach. Due to his excitement, the little dragon ends up burning his tongue, so Takeru has no choice but to blow on the soup. Once Once the little one properly tastes the food, he's immediately delighted in the taste of it. Takaru thinks that it'd be dull if his partner only ever drank water for meals, so he's glad that they can eat the same things. Still, he asks B if he feels lonely being away from his parent. The only answer he gets is B approaching him for a hug, letting him know that he's fine as long as he's with him. Takaru admits that he's really cute, but when he sees B's stats for the first time, he realizes that the little dragon hatching is actually rank B. His skills are spirit arts, having affinity with fire, water, wind, thunder, light, and darkness. His gift is the blessing of the ancient dragon, and he has language comprehension and infinite evolution. Takeru can't believe that even this cute thing is rank B, but he convinces himself that B is still a kid, and kids need proper guidance. That's why he tells him that even if he's stronger than him, he must not do anything reckless. After all, if anything happens to him, Voldius is going to chew him out for sure. Before he can finish his sentence, Takeru realizes that B has fallen into a deep sleep, making him sigh with resignation. He knows that he wished for a cute partner, but he wasn't expecting a reptile, and knows that the god probably did this on purpose. The next morning, Takeru decides to climb up until he's finally in the forest of ancient dragons again. However, he realizes that the place is not creepy anymore, meaning that something probably happened overnight. He assumes it must be one of those mysterious forests, since it's a different world and all. B happily explores the place, so Takeru decides to start gathering materials, focusing on rank C stuff. His ability helps him find new herbs all over the place, but his search is suddenly interrupted when B comes flying to him, completely terrified. Takeru immediately uses his search skill to find aggressive monsters, and it shows him that there are around 7 nearby. Before he went into the cave, he figured his smell kept monsters away, so now he assumes that his scent has worn off. Despite that, he knows that taking down monsters isn't all bad, since they could have valuable materials. Suddenly, another monster approaches them from behind, and Takeru's appraisal skill lets him know that it's a rank C rock falcon. It's a ferocious, carnivorous large bird that aims for people's eyes with its sharp beak and swift movements. Despite how intimidating it might seem, Takeru isn't impressed at all, since it almost looks cute compared to Voldius. He ignores all its stats and focuses on the fact its meat is rich and sweet with fat, and its spine can be processed into seasoning. Takeru now only sees a flying ingredient for their future meals, so he quickly uses his magic to create a barrier. After that, he uses magic to create ice needles, saying that he hates pointless killing, but if he's going to hunt, he'll turn it into a means of survival. The rock falcon prepares to attack, but Takeru takes it down with only 3 ice needles. However, B warns him that more monsters are approaching, though Takeru only sees this as an opportunity to get more meat. His appraisal skill informs him that these are rank C serpent wolves, ferocious, omnivorous wolves that attack by extending their snake-like tails, which carry a paralytic poison. Once again, Takeru uses his gift to gain speed, and reduction to lighten his body. He manages to jump very high thanks to that, and in the air, he uses harden on both arms and legs to land with a strong kick, taking down one of the wolves. He uses his bare fists to take down the others, clearing the place in no time. Without wasting a second, he gathers all the meat and other materials, but his skill shows him that there are many more monsters approaching, which is a pain. Takeru knows that he can't keep fighting all the way until he's out of the forest, and he simply doesn't want to. His train of thought is interrupted by B, who is desperately trying to make him move, wanting him to go somewhere else. Takeru assumes that he's trying to fly them out of here, though that's a very difficult task for a dragon as small as him. Despite that, B manages to lift him up, and seeing how strong he is, Takeru decides to use reduction to lighten his body again. Thanks to this, B flies way too high into the sky, but suddenly lets go of Takeru, making him fall. When the little dragon realizes what he just did, he panics and immediately flies to try and catch his partner. Takeru falls into the forest again, and when he opens his eyes, the first thing he perceives is the fishy smell coming from B licking his face. At least he's alive, but the second thing he notices is that they're in the same place where they camped the night before. Takeru is a little surprised by how fast B flew to get them here, but he knows that he was trying to save him, so he's grateful. However, he tries to remind him that he's probably still human, so it's best if he takes it a little easier next time. B doesn't seem to understand his point, so Takeru just tells him that he'll be counting on him again if something happens. This makes the little dragon really happy, so the two of them decide to continue on their journey. According to Takeru's search skill, Tormi village is a day's walk from where they are right now, so they can take it slow. B notices the stick in his hand, and Takeru explains that it was in his bag when he got here, and it's apparently a rank SS branch from the famous tree, Yggdrasil. It's a legendary tree said to embody the world itself, which is currently dormant. When B hears this, he suddenly makes smoke come out of his mouth, covering the branch completely. Takeru has no idea of what he's doing, but once the smoke clears, he's shocked to see the small branch is now a staff. He assumes that it woke up after B blew mana-laced breath on it, but it's still a little hard to understand. Takeru didn't know that a material gatherer using a staff was even a thing, and he really doesn't want to look like some flashy mage. Just then, a deep growl is heard in the woods, so he immediately stands on guard, knowing that something must be there. The terrifying sound intensifies, so Takeru assumes it's a new monster, but B carelessly goes flying into the woods. Takeru panics and instantly runs after him, finding him soon after, flying around a tree. This makes it very clear that B is trying to show him something, and when Takeru gets to the place, he finds an elf elf girl sitting against the tree. Her expression is lifeless, and she's clearly weak, so he assumes that she was attacked by a monster. However, the loud growl from before is heard again, but Takeru is a little taken aback when he realizes that it's actually her stomach. The girl weakly explains that she hasn't eaten for 3 days, and she also needs water. Takeru quickly offers her water, so she desperately drinks all the bottle, feeling instantly better. Her smile fades when her stomach growls again, and Takeru can't believe that the monster growl he heard before was a starving elf's belly. He rummages through his bag, remembering that the innkeeper gave him a special lunch to take with him. Without hesitation, the girl takes the food and starts eating desperately, enjoying every bite. She suddenly stops eating to exclaim how good it is in a dramatic way, saying that she feels like she's ascending to heaven from sheer flavor. Takeru clarifies that when someone is on the brink of starvation, pretty much anything tastes amazing. The girl still smiles in bliss, telling him that she feels revived. Leaving that aside, he decides to ask her something, mentioning that she's far from the village, but not so far she'd run out of food. She explains that she was in a hurry, but Takeru tells her that even if she's in a hurry, it's normal to pack some rations, even if she's not an adventurer. The girl doesn't know how to excuse herself, but Takeru is distracted by how bad she smells and mentions that he thought elves smelled like a spring breeze with a hint of peppermint, but she smells like manure. This clearly offends her, even though she knows he's right, but she tries to explain that it can't be helped since she's been camping out for days. That aside, she suddenly stands up and says that she has to go since she's in a hurry. She's grateful he helped her, but lets him know that calling her a manure was pretty rude. Takeru and B wave her goodbye as she runs away, and even though he's a bit confused by the whole interaction, Takeru decides to continue searching for materials. They take their time collecting materials while making their way out of the forest, and just as they're about to leave, B notices something. Takeru is surprised to see a carriage on the road, but he finds the fact that B could spot it that far away even more shocking. He praises how amazing he is, and when they're closer to the carriage, his appraisal skill lets him know that the horse in front of the carriage is actually a rank E unicorn. Unicorns are native to Igrary, not fast but powerful and durable, widely used to pull carriages and charlottes, and they're also an excellent farm horse. Takeru takes a minute to process the fact horses are unicorns in this world, but the man in the carriage asks him what he's doing out here. He quickly snaps out of his thoughts to tell him that they're on their way to Tormi village. The man mentions that going there on foot must be rough, and when he sees Takeru's staff, he assumes that he's a mage. Takeru clarifies that he just collects and trades materials, and the driver tells him that seeing a specialist gatherer is rare. Takeru laughs nervously, knowing that he's not exactly a specialist, but he won't say that. The man informs him that they're heading back to Tormi and asks him if he wants a ride. Takeru thanks him for the offer, but warns him that he's pretty big compared to normal people. Some kids in the carriage laugh and agree with him, saying that he's really funny. Takeru smiles, even though he doesn't remember saying anything funny. Still, the lady in the carriage and the kids invite him in, so he thanks them and enters the carriage. Takeru can't help but think that for some reason, ever since he came here, kids seem to like him a lot. It isn't all bad though, since it helps lower parents' guard too, so he makes the most of it. The man starts driving the carriage and tells him that he doesn't have to worry about his size, as even with him aboard, the carriage is just fine. Takeru still apologizes for making it cramped, but the man tells him that it's fine, since in Tormi, the rule is to help each other when in trouble. The lady agrees, saying that they decided that they'll help anyone in need. Takeru thanks them once again, a little surprised that even these young kids are traveling despite how dangerous it is, which makes them pretty brave. The kids are really nice to him, so he decides to ask what they would do if he was an evil bandit. One of the kids laughs, saying that he knows that's a lie, because the magic item stayed quiet. Takeru clearly doesn't know what he's talking about, so the woman shows him a little bell and explains that if someone dangerous came near, it would go off to warn them. He notices that there's magic embedded in the stone that rings the bell and thinks that he could probably make something like that. Suddenly he realizes that he forgot to introduce himself, so he tells them his name. The woman praises how polite he is and introduces herself as Eliza, saying that her kids are named Yunnan and Kine. Lastly, the driver introduces himself as Porin, but just as they're done with the introductions, B makes a sound from Takeru's coat. The kids are quick to hear it, so they excitedly ask him to show them whatever he's hiding. Takeru is a little reluctant about doing so, saying that it's probably a very rare monster. Eliza mentions how awfully secretive he's being and reminds him that monsters aren't that rare, since adventurers often keep them beside them. Knowing this, Takeru decides to show them, so he asks B to come out, telling him not to cause a scene or bite anyone. B immediately shows himself, and even though the kids are excited to see how cute it is, Eliza is clearly surprised. Porin asks him if that little one is a dragon type, so Takeru tells him that it's a black dragon hatchling. He decides not to mention that it's actually an ancient dragon's child, since it's probably better that way. Porin assumes he's a dragon knight in that case, but Takeru quickly denies it, clarifying that he just happened to pick up a dragon egg. Both Porin and Eliza are shocked to hear that he hatched it from the egg, because they didn't even know that could happen. Takeru smiles nervously as B plays with his face, asking them if dragons are really that rare. Eliza explains that they rarely come across dragon knights, but an actual dragon is more rare. Takeru knows that a dragon knight is a total RPG classic, so if he ever meets one, he's definitely going to stare. Once it's nighttime, the carriage stops stops at a spot to camp, so Takeru uses magic to create light. He also uses the magic stones again to create a barrier that keeps monsters away. He informs them that if anything does get close, B will alert them so they don't have to worry. Porin and Eliza are relieved to hear this, and even the kids are very calm, making it clear that dragon trust if off the charts. Eliza decides to start preparing dinner, but Takeru stops her and asks them to let him prepare dinner for everyone to say thanks. Without wasting a second, he places different ingredients in a pan, and the kids are so surprised that they assume he's truly a mage. Takeru clarifies that he just has an item box, but even Eliza is impressed by this. He decides to prepare the usual special meat soup, using steak from the leftover meat. This time, he also prepares a special mushroom and vegetable salad, and everyone is surprised by how good it looks. The taste of the food surprises them even more, and even the kids completely love it. Eliza praises Takeru, saying that he's quite the cook, and on the other hand, Porin is completely speechless. Takeru worries a little, wondering if his food doesn't suit his taste, and even Eliza gets concerned. After a few seconds trembling, Porin manages to express how good the food is, and he even cries about it, saying that on the road it's been nothing but jerky, day after day. Seeing the kids' happy faces eating a feast like this makes him really happy, so now he can't stop crying even if he wants. Takeru takes a few seconds to process the reason of his tears, and he can't help but laugh loudly, telling him that he's exaggerating. Porin abruptly stops crying to accuse him of being a mage, saying that he must be some kind of wizard of taste. A little taken aback, Takeru laughs and asks him what kind of wizard is that, since he never heard anything like it before. The kids laugh with him, and to end the night, Porin decides to play the guitar while his wife sings. B happily dances with the kids, and they invite Takeru to do the same. Back on Earth, Takeru never realized that compared to eating alone in silence, nights like this truly are not so bad. After all, for the first time since coming to this world, he has truly laughed from the heart. The next morning, while the kids remain asleep, Porin prepares the carriage to go, and Eliza decides to approach Takeru to see what he's doing so early in the morning. He explains that he's just doing some maintenance on his scissors, and Eliza praises him for it, saying that people who take care of their tools always do good work. Takeru starts to think that working on things like this feels pretty good sometimes, and even if he just started this by chance, he thinks that gathering materials really suits him. Finally, after breakfast, Porin decides to head out, but Takeru chooses to go in the driver's seat with him this time. He takes the reins of the unicorn and asks him to pick up the pace a little, and surprisingly, the unicorn complies with him. Porin is a little surprised that he got the unicorn to like him already, but Takeru explains that he's just really smart. A while after, they finally arrive in Tormi village, so Porin's family say goodbye to Takeru, thanking him for everything. Takeru thanks them too, since it's thanks to them that he didn't have to walk all the way back to the village. After seeing them, Marlo mentions that if Porin is back, that means spring is already here. Takeru asks him what Porin does exactly, and Marlo explains that in winter, he goes to warmer regions and does weaving for a living. That's why when he comes back, it means spring has arrived. He said it's tough though, because with no hunting, they barely scrape by with food and supplies. Takeru then understands why Porin cried like a baby with his cooking, and realizes that he's really lucky to have abilities that let him gather materials. His train of thought is interrupted by Marlo, who reminds him that he should go report Jerome about that job. Takeru decides to go as soon as he mentions it, and while B plays with the kids in the village, Jerome inspects the items he brought. Along with the requested mithril ore, Takeru slipped in a piece of mithril magic ore just to see what Jerome would say. However, the silence goes on way too long as Jerome thoroughly inspects the small piece, and all Takeru can hear is his groaning. Finally, after a while, Jerome speaks up, saying that this is some crazy stuff he's brought. His gut is telling him this isn't just any rock, but mithril magic ore. Of course, Takeru already knows that, but Jerome is clearly shocked, so he asks him where he found something like this, since it's the stuff of legend. Takeru wasn't expecting it to be that valuable, and he can't help but raise his voice in surprise. Jerome tells him that this is like a mass of concentrated mana, so just a few pieces could replace the magic stones used across the entire kingdom. Once again, Takeru is shocked to hear it's that powerful, so he nervously lies and says that he just stumbled across it. Jerome clarifies that even if he just happened to find it lying under his feet, the fact that he picked it up means he's got both luck and skill. However, skill alone isn't enough, since he doesn't know the first thing about common sense around here, and that's why he should head to Belkheim. Belkheim is a city many times bigger than this village, so he'll find all kinds of information there, and an adventurer's guild. He can learn how this world works, and they can also buy materials he can't handle here in his small shop. Jerome admits that he'll hate to see his skills leave, but if he makes a name for himself and spreads Tormi's name while he's at it, his shop will prosper too. Takeru just smiles nervously, because deep down, he knows that he's not really planning to make a name for himself, but he's still interested in that big city he mentioned. That night at the inn, he decides to investigate other terms Jerome said, and finds out that a guild is just an adventurers association that brokers requests across the land. The book he's reading mentions that adventurers are divided into combat, support, and all sorts of other roles. Takeru closes the book and decides to think about it, knowing that since he's been sent to another world, he really wants to travel and see things he never could before. As an adventurer, he could earn money while journeying, so he decides that his goal now is to join a guild in Belkheim. However, there are still things he wants to do here in Tormi, so he'll take it slow for now. B apparently agrees with him, so during the following days, Takeru spends quality time with the people of the village, learning new things he never imagined and joining them in their celebrations. Finally, he decides that it's time to go, so a lady gives him various supplies for his journey. She gives him a bag of soup stock powder made from rock falcon bones and asks him if he needs any other seasonings. Takeru tells her that he has plenty, since she has shared so much already, so he'll be fine. The lady suddenly shows a sad expression, saying that she'll feel lonely without him around tomorrow, and Takeru clarifies that he will miss this too. She tells him that the villagers were saying he should stay a little longer, but Takeru explains that there is so much out there he wants to see, so he can't stay even if he wants to. Knowing this, the lady says that she won't try to hold him back in that case, and decides to give him a travel lunch, since it'll take him about a month to reach Belkaim. Takeru smiles, and thanks her for the gesture, but the lady keeps adding bags in his arms for his journey. So many, that Takeru starts feeling grateful he has an item box. He heads back to the inn, and tries to think about what he will do with the mithril magic ore, since Jerome couldn't buy it, but he could maybe put it to use somehow. B tries to think about it as well, but he quickly gives up and decides to sleep, and Takeru doesn't blame him for it, since he can't think of anything himself. Still, he knows that he owes this village a lot, so he tries to think of something that will help the village. Just then, Takeru remembers for a brief moment something that he saw before during the village's celebration, and he decides to try something, using a lamp and the piece of mithril magic ore. He focuses on picturing what the thing he wants will look like when it's complete, and in a matter of seconds, he manages to create some kind of special lamp. The next day, all the people in the village gather to say goodbye, and Porin can't help but cry. Before leaving, Takeru tells Marlo that he made a magic tool, which projects a barrier around the village. That way, anything with malice or harmful intent won't be able to enter the village. Marlo is a little shocked to hear it is that powerful, so he asks him if he's really sure they can accept such a thing. Takeru clarifies that it's his way of thanking everyone, and a wish for their safety until he comes back. Marlo thanks him sincerely, saying that he's always welcome back, and Takeru tells him that he'll definitely be back, since Tormi Village is his home now. Everyone is moved by his words, but Jerome suddenly takes the lamp Takeru made from Marlo's hands to inspect it thoroughly. Just when he notices the lamp has the precious piece of mithril magic ore, Takeru runs away before he can protest, asking them to take care. Everyone says goodbye to him, and Jerome has no other choice but to accept the gift, just asking him to be careful out there. Just like that, Takeru sets out on his journey with B, wondering what kind of place Belkaim will be. After a while walking, he mentions how peaceful the surroundings are, but just then, they suddenly run into a giant crab in the middle of the road. Before doing anything, Takeru immediately uses his appraisal skill to scan, and notices that it's a rank C Mont Blanc crab, a type of burrowing crab, which is omnivorous and edible. This last part is all Takeru really cares about, and he tells B that crab meat is insanely good. With this in mind, he instantly uses reduction and harden on his body, preparing himself to fight. However, before he can do anything, B goes ahead and uses a sonic attack, which immediately takes the crab down without even touching it. Takeru is a little surprised he can do something like that, since he had no idea, but he's actually glad. Several other Mont Blanc crabs surround them in a matter of seconds, but Takeru doesn't get intimidated by them, saying that they're just crabs. That means that if they can only move sideways, he can manage to take advantage of that. Just as he finishes saying that, the Mont Blanc crabs suddenly start moving straight ahead, taking him off guard. Two crabs run towards him at the same time, but B quickly lifts Takeru to save him, and the crabs collide with each other. Takeru thanks B for saving him, but he notices there's still one Mont Blanc crab left, so he decides to take it down himself, saying that he will enjoy eating it. The crab launches at him, but Takeru uses his super finishing move, hitting the crab with his staff. They easily take down all the Mont Blanc crabs that way, so that night, Takeru doesn't waste any time and prepares them to cook them. He firstly uses harden on his hand to protect his body, and with that he manages to cut all the legs of the crab. Once he's done with this, he sets a big pot over the fire and throws all the crab legs in with plenty of water and salt, just letting it boil. After a while, the crab looks just about ready, so Takeru takes a leg out and cracks the shell open to dig in. Both him and B are delighted by the taste, so Takeru is now more than excited about continuing traveling, wanting to explore new places and taste even more amazing food with B. They both enjoy the meal that night, and after a long journey, they finally manage to reach the commercial city of Belkaim. Takeru is clearly impressed at first glance, saying that the fortress wall has a beautiful architecture. He uses his appraisal skill, and it informs him that he's in the commercial city of Belkaim, in the kingdom of Alzerio, whose adventurers guild is the largest on the continent. Takeru notices there's a line for inspection before entering the city, so he decides to disguise his item bag to look normal using magic. Once it's his turn, he asks B to stay calm and hidden for a bit, so the little dragon hides in his coat. The guards inspect the things in his bag, and just like everyone, they say that seeing a material gatherer is rare. One of them asks him if he's here to sell his finds in Belkaim, but Takeru clarifies that he just came because he's interested in the Adventurers Guild. The inspector was already expecting a reason like that, because Belkaim is the city of commerce and adventure after all. People like him are welcome here, but he clarifies that he still has to do his job, so he'll cast avarice on him. Takeru is clearly clueless about that, so the inspector explains that it's magic that that checks whether newcomers are suspicious. The man approaches Takeru and uses a magic item that looks like a magnifying glass on him, seeing nothing out of the ordinary. The woman inspecting his equipment mentions that his belongings are fine as well, and Takeru is a little relieved. Still, he wonders what his status looks like to other people, so he decides to use scan to peek at what the inspector is seeing. His appraisal skill only lets him know that the man is Raiden Enahasis, a rank D Belkame Security Corps gate inspector. That's not what Takeru wants to see, so he tries looking further, and his appraisal skill finally shows him what the others see. They just see him as a 19-year-old guy with unassigned rank that can use magic and has some skills, but doesn't own a spirit. Takeru notices that his status looks pretty bare bones, so he assumes that all the extra gifts the god gave him don't show up. Once the inspector decides he's clear, he writes something down, and Takeru thinks that he's already good to go. However, Raiden asks him what that blessing of the dragon is, since the magic item he used indicated he has it. At this, Takeru decides to show him rather than tell him, so he asks B to come out already. B quickly comes out of his coat, and Takeru explains that the blessing of the dragon is probably because of this little guy. The two inspectors agree on how adorable B is, but Raiden quickly tries to compose himself and asks Takeru to put some kind of tag on the dragon to prove it's his. Not really sure about what he could use, Takeru rummages through his bag and finds the charm the kids from Tormi Village gave them. He decides to put that charm on B's tail, and Raiden says that that will be enough, so he'll file a note with the mayor that a dragon has entered the city and it shouldn't cause trouble. The woman returns his bag and tells him that the Adventurers Guild is straight down the main road, and it's the large building ahead. Takeru thanks her for the information, and Raiden finally welcomes him to Belkame. Soon after that, both B and Takeru enter the city, instantly noticing how lively it looks with all the different kinds of people. Takeru mentions that he feels like he's arrived in another world, though he's been in Medeus for a while now. Just like the woman said, he walks all the way down the main road and finds a large building, so he assumes it's the Adventurers Guild and decides to go check it out. B follows him all the way, as always, and when they enter the guild, a girl with bunny ears welcomes them to the Adventurers Guild, Europa. She introduces herself as the receptionist, Ariana, and says that new registrations are always welcome. Takeru follows her to her office, and she asks him to fill out his name and current occupation on the form she gave him. Just then, as he files out the form without problem, Takeru realizes that he can read the language here, but he has never actually written it before. Somehow, whatever he's thinking just writes itself onto the paper, and he's not even sure of which skill did that, but it's clearly really convenient. Once he fills out the whole form, Ariana gets excited to see he's a material gatherer and asks him if he has any combat experience. Takeru mentions that he has a little, since he's fought a big bird, a wolf with a snake tail, and a really tasty crab. Seemingly surprised, Ariana asks him if he has any proof of that, just to confirm. Takeru hesitates for a bit and says that it's kind of big.
That's what he said.
So he doesn't know if it's okay to take it out. The receptionist nervously asks him to go ahead, so Takeru gets an entire Mont Blanc crab out of his item box, one of the many he and B defeated before. Ariana immediately gets startled, and the giant crab ends up crushing her desk completely. Takeru just then realizes his mistake, but before he can apologize, the poor receptionist runs away to take some distance, clearly terrified. The cloud of dust hides what happened in her office, so the other adventurers ask her what's going on. Once the dust dissipates, Takeru awkwardly explains that it is just a Mont Blanc crab, though this is clearly obvious to everyone. After that little inconvenient, Takeru still nervously asks the receptionist if this Mont Blanc crab will work as the proof she asked for. Ariana, still a little stunned, tells him that it is more than enough proof, but one of the adventurers mentions that he has an item box. Takeru confirms this and explains that it was just a gift, but this doesn't sound as convincing. The adventurer's eyes suddenly start glowing as he uses some sort of skill on Takeru, thoroughly observing him. After a few seconds, the man confirms that he's not lying, so he tells Ariana that it's fine, since he's telling the truth and the guy is blue. Feeling a little confused, Takeru decides to ask what he means by blue, and the adventurer tells him that he used avarice. He apologizes for casting avarice on him without asking, and explains that his version of the skill reads a person's nature. Blue means he's clean, with no ill intent, so he knows that he's not a bad person. Takeru knows that he wasn't lying, so that seems to be fair enough for him. Leaving that aside, the man suggests moving on to the appraisal and payment, but Ariana tells him that Takeru is still in the middle of registration. This leaves the man a little confused, since he thought Takeru was here to sell the crab shell. Hearing that, Takeru decides to correct him, saying that he actually just wants to eat the crab. All the people in the guild are left a little bewildered after hearing that, asking him if he really is going to eat that thing. Takeru can just smile awkwardly, not understanding all the commotion, since, in his opinion, the Mont Blanc crab meat is insanely delicious. The adventurer decides to ignore that to proceed with the registration, asking him if he has any party members. Takeru points at B and tells them that he's his partner, which leaves everyone surprised again. Having a dragon partner boosts up his reputation, and just like that, Takeru quickly starts drawing attention. Noticing this, Ariana decides to finish his registration and tells him that everyone starts from the lowest rank, F, according to the guild rules. She tells him that she'll be rooting for him, and Takeru thanks her, accepting the bracelet she gave him and realizing that he's now matching with B. Soon after that, Takeru finds the family of the adventurer he found dead in the woods to return his belongings, giving them the sad news. He tells them that he found him in the woods near Tormi village, but he doubts he suffered. The family cries at the news, and the mother of the adventurer says that he was always reckless, always causing trouble. Her husband thanks Takeru for coming here to inform them, but a coughing fit interrupts his sentence. Just then, Takeru remembers that Raiden was the one who identified the adventurer's belongings and told him that he was Beluria Fend, a man who took jobs to pay for his father's medicine. Takeru only intended to deliver Beluria's belongings to his family, but seeing his father's health, he decides to do something more to help them. Sometime later, he meets with an appraiser at the guild and tells him that he has 8 Aprara leaves and 6 Polawent roots, along with 20 each of lapis and madder mushrooms. The appraiser is pleased to see the items and tells him that he's never seen such large mushrooms, and their clients speak highly of him too. He's been in the guild only for a while now, but they want to hire him specifically. Takeru admits that he feels honored to hear that, and just then, Ariana enters the room to inform him that they've actually received a lot of job requests for him. Of course, he can't possibly do all of them, but he decides to take on a few of them at least, so Ariana thanks him and says that she'll notify the clients. After a long day, Takeru decides to relax in the baths of the city, feeling grateful that he can actually take a bath in this world. It's been half a month since they arrived in Belkaim, and when they first arrived, this bath was filthy, so he didn't hesitate to use cleaning magic. Now he can end his days by relieving his exhaustion with a bath, and he couldn't be happier about it. While he relaxes, a lizard man from the guild named Clayston joins him in the bath. Takeru is a little surprised to see him since he doesn't often come here at this hour, but Clay tells him that his old scars are acting up, so it'll probably rain soon. That aside, he mentions the fact that Takeru can cast healing spells too, since he heard a rumor that he treated a sick man in the slums. Takeru knows that he's referring to Beluria's father because he decided to use healing magic on him to cure his disease that day. He clarifies that he was just copying something he'd seen before, though it is true that he didn't charge a fee either. Clay tells him that he's truly a selfless guy, but he could make a killing. Hearing that, Takeru gets a little worried, wondering if healers who charge a fee now resent him. This only makes Clay laugh loudly, but he leaves that aside and asks him if he received a notice about raising his rank. Takeru simply tells him that he's happy with things the way they are now, so he doesn't want to raise his rank. Clay confirms that he's selfless once again, but he warns him that he'll draw more attention to himself acting like that. Takeru clarifies that there are things that he wants, like some sharp scissors for gathering materials. Clay exits the bath, saying that that's not what he meant, and in any case, all he can tell him right now is that he should learn more about the world. Sometime after that, Takeru returns to the guild after completing a job, and the appraiser from before asks him to raise his rank, as they've requested numerous times before. After all, a high rank isn't out of reach for him, given the skills he's shown. Again, Takeru tells him that he's really not interested in advancing, and deep down, he knows that if he's not careful, advancement could mean more trouble. Doing what he wants at a low rank is way better, so he doesn't want to change that anytime soon because he wants to live in peace. Just then, an adventurer enters the guild with awful news, saying that goblins are attacking. The guildmaster asks them to contact everyone rank D and higher, have them gather at the North Station, and bring every available healing magician and doctor. He asks a little girl named Moosely which rank A adventurers are still in the city, and she informs him that Brow and Monahan are absent, but Clayston is available. The guildmaster knows she's referring to the Honorable Dragon King, so he asks her to contact him right away. Takeru sees the whole interaction, but he decides to leave the guild, thinking that it's none of his business since he's rank F. Despite this, the guildmaster stops him right away and tells him that he's coming too. Having no other choice, Takeru attends the strategic meeting, and the guildmaster informs them that the front line is on the southwestern Stavlaw Plains. The goblins will head straight for Belkaim, so they can't let them cross the bridge spanning the Zalwes River. All the adventurers agree, and Takeru can see how passionate they are, so he considers them total jocks. As the liberal arts type, he knows he can't keep up, so he feels a little out of place. Just then, a pair of adventurers named Diego and Oraldo speak to him, knowing that he's rank F. They ask him not to get ahead of himself and end up in their way, though they're sure he'll probably be too scared to be useful. While they laugh at him, the guildmaster approaches Takeru and mentions that he's apparently the gatherer Grit has been gushing about. Takeru nervously introduces himself, and the guildmaster tells him that people have nothing but good things to say about him, and it's unusual for Grit to praise someone unconditionally like that. Hearing that, Takeru simply smiles awkwardly and says that he's honored, while the guildmaster stares at him without blinking. Seeing him unfazed, the guildmaster laughs, pleased to see he's the first person who hasn't been intimidated by his presence. He bets that he's way more impressive than he looks, though Diego and Oraldo disagree, since Takeru is just a scrawny thing to them. Takeru internally wishes he didn't talk him up so much because he doesn't want negative attention. The guildmaster simply leaves, saying that he can protect himself despite being rank F, so he just has to protect what he wants to protect. Diego and Oraldo leave with the boss, so Moosely stays with Takeru and mentions that she can't believe the boss is sending F ranks out there. She apologizes for that, but at the same time, shows how excited she is now that they're here, wanting to take part in the action. Takeru is a little confused, so Moosely introduces herself and tells him that she can use a bit of healing magic, so they have to make sure to meet the guildmaster's expectations in this battle. Despite her excitement, once they head to the base for the mission, situation, Muesli is clearly scared of everything, clinging to Takeru as if her life depended on it. She tries to deny her fear, even though she's crying non-stop, and Takeru knows that he has to calm her down or she's going to be trouble. He reminds her that they're in the back, where they can't even see the enemy, and she's still terrified. If she can use her healing magic, then she should focus on healing the wounded, because nobody said she has to fight. Takeru reassures her, saying that it's okay to be scared, and for once, Muesli stops crying and listens. He tells her that combatants hurt each other on the battlefield, so it's natural to be scared, and she shouldn't be ashamed of feeling that way. After all, they fight because they're scared, and they fight back because they're afraid. They just have to do what they can to survive, and she has the power to do that. Muesli quickly wipes her tears and changes her attitude, so her excitement quickly comes back, and she decides to do her best to do what she can. Once she heads back to the base, Clay approaches Takeru after hearing his speech, clearly amused. Takeru admits that it was out of character, but Clay clarifies that he was just thinking that even he speaks passionately sometimes. Leaving that aside, Takeru mentions that he thought he'd be on the front line, but Clay tells him that his old scars are hurting today, and his body won't listen to him. Takeru assumes he's talking about the deep scars on his back that he saw at the baths, so he asks him if it's because of them. This is clearly a sensitive topic for Clay, so it throws him off for a moment, but once he recovers, he asks him if he doesn't think they're a badge of shame for a warrior. After all, anyone would think that he got them because he ran from an enemy. Takeru tells him that he got them defending someone, and even though he was badly injured, he's still alive, which means he can protect someone else. Clay is a little surprised, but he admits that it's one way of looking at it. Just then, they receive the signal from the guildmaster, who informs them that the formation has been breached, and the enemy forces will arrive soon. Clay grabs a weapon without hesitation, saying that he's going to the front line, because even if his body breaks, he's going to protect them. He leaves before Takeru can object, but Takeru knows that Clay won't be able to protect anyone if he's broken. Muesli keeps her composure despite the situation, and Takeru realizes that he can't worry about avoiding trouble right now. He decides to pull out his staff and activates a magic shield, surrounding the area with strong walls to protect the base. Takeru lets Muesli know that he'll go check on Clay, and then immediately leaves, applying hard to both hands and feet to fight the goblins in the way. He hesitates a little, since even though goblins are monsters, fighting humanoids is tough. Despite that, he knows that he can't worry about that now, so he asks B to knock them down. The little dragon prepares a powerful attack to do so, and all the adventurers nearby immediately get down to protect themselves. In just a matter of seconds, all the goblins are out thanks to B, so Diego and Araldo thank them for saving them. They explain that a high-ranking monster appeared, and it's a goblin sergeant. The front line collapsed because of it, but thanks to Clayston, they managed to escape. However, they got separated at some point, so they lost contact with Clay and have no way to find him. In another scene, we see Clay fighting against the goblins under the rain alone, but the pain of his scars make him commit a fatal mistake. Just when the goblins are about to end him, B takes care of them with lighting, just like before. Takeru quickly approaches Clay, saying that he knows the weather is making his scars hurt. Clay screams in pain when he pats his back, so Takeru asks him to retreat, saying that they'll plan a counterattack. Just as these words leave his mouth, a loud growl is heard in the distance, and Clay tells him that he can't retreat right now. Takeru clarifies that he and B can fight, but Clay warns him that even if they run, the goblins will catch up to them. The goblin sergeant suddenly approaches them with a violent attack, and the smaller goblins surround them. After dodging the attack, Clay tells them that they have to escape while he buys them time. Seeing his resolve, Takeru decides to ask him if those scars on his back are important to him, wanting to know if they're a memento of something, or maybe a reminder of someone important. As he fights the goblins, Clay tells him that they're just proof of his foolishness, so he totally despises them. Takeru confirms that he won't mind if he erases them in that case. So just after B creates a barrier, he takes some of Voldius's water from his bag and throws it at Clay's back. After that, he uses a spell called Ridifulius and heals Clay's entire body. Clay falls on his knees as his scars rapidly disappear and his body suddenly transforms. Takeru is a little surprised to see how much he's changed, and Clay tells him that strength is rising from within him and he feels like he's young again. Thanks to this, he's able to fight the goblins with his bare claws and finishes them all in just a few minutes. After the area is clear, the guildmaster approaches Takeru and asks him if he was the one who drew out Clayston's power. Takeru explains that he simply used a bit of healing magic, but the guildmaster tells him that he knows that's not all he can do. He also heard he threw around some huge spells as well, though that was actually B. The guildmaster asks him who he truly is, but Takeru tells him that he's just an ordinary rank F adventurer whose only skill is gathering materials. Despite how unconvincing that sounds, the guildmaster decides not to pry any further and tells him that the guild will reward him for his actions. That night, Clay pays a visit to him, demanding him to explain what he did. Takeru is glad to see he's back to normal now, but Clay clarifies that he's not back to normal at all, since there's still something hot smoldering inside him, so he needs to know what he did to him. Takeru tries to calm him down and explains that he just threw magic element water and cast Ridifulias on him. Seeing Clay's confusion, Takeru tells him that it's an aggregation of highly concentrated, high-purity magic element. The ancient dragon Voldius had it in their underground lake, which is connected to his bag. Clay is clearly lost with all the information, so Takeru explains that Voldius is B's father or mother. Knowing that B is an ancient ancient dragon surprises him a little, but Clay asks him why he threw that blessed water on him. Takeru tells him that since water element is composed of magic power, he thought it would speed up his healing if he absorbed it through his skin. It was truly an emergency, so he wanted to do whatever he could in that moment. Clay understands that he can use advanced healing spells as well, but once again, Takeru tells him that he is actually just copying something he saw before. Apparently, healing magic is far more effective when he imagines the body's composition. It worked only because he knew important nerves are concentrated in the back. Hearing this, Clay's expression remains serious as he asks Takeru who he truly is. This question takes him off guard, and the heavy silence in the room makes Takeru feel conflicted. He starts wondering what he should do, because that young man or god didn't exactly forbid him from revealing his identity, but revealing that would cause an uproar. If that happens, he won't be able to go back to the life he had, and that's something he doesn't want. However, Takeru knows that he's responsible for what happened to Clay as well, so he can't just easily lie to him. Sensing his inner conflict, Clay stands up with a sigh and tells him that he won't ask anymore if it troubles him that much. He apologizes for barging in his room, but before he can leave, Takeru quickly stops him, saying that he'll tell him because he trusts him. Clay stops for a moment, and Takeru finally confesses that he comes from another world. A long silence follows after that confession, but the tension quickly dissipates when Clay stares at him like he's crazy. Takeru smiles nervously, saying that it's just normal for him to make that expression after hearing something like that. He tries to explain the concept of reincarnation, and Clay assumes that he is talking about when a soul receives a new body and is reborn. Takeru quickly confirms that and tells him that he died once and was reborn in this body. Clay takes a few minutes to process that information, but he's clearly having a hard time doing so. That's why Takeru makes him sit down and explains everything that happened in detail. Clay decides to be honest and tells him that he finds it preposterous and hard to believe, but it's true that he did, in fact, heal his old scars and turn him into a dragon newt. A dragon newt is the ancestor species of lizardmen, and he's proud to have taken on that noble-blooded form, but it still scares him a little. Clay confesses that he fears he'll lose his mind and destroy everything, but Takeru tries to reassure him, saying that he's sure he will get used to it eventually. Despite his attempt to calm him down, Clay gets furious again and asks him to be more responsible. Takeru reminds him that he can't go back to how he was, so he just has to be careful not to get too excited. Clay clarifies that it's not that simple, and he's been meaning to tell him that he does everything too casually, so he'll take the opportunity to give him an earful today. Takeru is not too excited to hear this at all, but he knows he can't escape him, so he'll just have to bear it. Sometime later, he and B decide to visit the craftsman's district of the city, and after a while walking, Takeru stops in front of a weapon store. He tells B that he wants to buy something there, and just then, a woman with feline ears approaches them. She's clearly the shopkeeper, and when she notices Takeru's interest, she welcomes him to her store and asks him if he sees something that catches his eye.